Picture this: Nigeria and Burkina Faso, two African nations whose relationship has dramatically shifted as Captain Ibrahim Traore's revolutionary leadership in Burkina Faso clashes with President Tinubu's position as ECOWAS chairman. But last weekend, something alarming happened in Nigeria. Kola Edokpayi, a well-known Marxist activist and leader of the Talakawa parliament, was arrested by operatives of the Department of State Services, or DSS, his crime. Planning a solidarity rally in support of Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traore. What makes this arrest particularly troubling is that Edokpayi had already agreed to cancel the rally after meeting with the Edo State Commissioner of Police. Despite complying with authorities and sending people to call off the demonstration, DSS and police operatives stormed his office, broke in, and arrested 6 people. While 4 were released, Edokpayi remained in detention. According to the Take It Back movement, Comrade Edokpayi was arrested for expressing solidarity with the government of Burkina Faso, led by Captain Ibrahim Traore. This blatant act of political repression is not only unlawful, but a direct attack on the constitutional rights of Nigerian citizens. The planned rally wasn't just a local event, it was part of a broader Pan-African movement, with similar demonstrations scheduled in Burkina Faso, Barbados, Jamaica, USA, Ghana, Liberia and South Africa. The goal? To mobilise support for Captain Traore's defiant stand against French neo-colonial influence in West Africa and General Langley accusations that Traore is selling his countries only to secure power. But the arrests weren't only in Nigeria. The Liberian police also threatened to arrest peaceful Ibrahim Traore supporters who joined the demonstrations. But why would the Nigerian and Liberian governments crack down so harshly on citizens expressing support for another African leader? What threat does this solidarity pose to Nigeria's stability or Tinubu's administration? To understand why Traore inspires such support, and why some governments fear this support, we need to look at his remarkable rise and achievements. What happens when citizens of one country show support for another country's leadership? Should expressing solidarity with foreign leaders be grounds for arrest? Is the growing support for Captain Ibrahim Traore across Africa a sign that people are yearning for a different kind of leadership? And what does this mean for the future of West African politics? The relationship between Nigeria and Burkina Faso has been deteriorating rapidly since January 2024, when Burkina Faso officially withdrew from ECOWAS alongside Mali and Niger. This exit marked a significant fracture in West African unity, as these 3 nations formed their own alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States. The situation became even more tense in July 2024, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was re-elected as the chairman of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State Government. This reinforced Nigeria's position as the dominant force in the regional bloc, and by extension, positioned Tinubu in direct opposition to Captain Ibrahim Traore's vision for the Sahel region. Since taking power in September 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traore has become a symbol of resistance against Western influence in Africa. At just 34 years old, he's the world's 2nd youngest leader, commanding attention not just for his age, but for his bold actions. Under Traore's leadership, Burkina Faso has achieved some remarkable economic milestones. The country has accelerated development at a pace that has surprised many observers. In a region where democratic governments have often struggled with economic progress, Traore's assertive leadership offers a stark contrast. His popularity soared even higher last month, when his government claimed to have foiled a coup attempt. Thousands rallied in Ouagadougou in his support, marking the largest demonstration for the military government since it took power. The attempted overthrow, according to Burkinabe authorities, was orchestrated from neighbouring Ivory Coast, adding another layer of regional tension. What makes Traore particularly appealing to many Africans is his stance against what he calls neo-colonialism. He has openly challenged France's continued influence in West Africa and has formed stronger ties with Russia, seeking alternative partnerships outside the traditional Western framework. This shift in alliances has not gone unnoticed by Western powers. Just last month, US Africa Command Commander General Michael Langley accused Traore of diverting Burkina Faso's gold reserves to sustain his military government rather than using the wealth to benefit the people. These remarks have drawn widespread backlash from Pan-African activists who view such statements as attempts to undermine African self-determination. As Traore's influence grows, so does his support base across Africa, including in Nigeria, where many young people see him as a model of leadership, a fact that clearly concerns Nigerian authorities. But are we witnessing just an isolated support for a foreign leader, or is it part of a growing Pan-African movement that transcends national boundaries? Recent acts of aggression targeting Sahel nations have triggered a wave of solidarity across the African continent. Thousands have rallied in support of Burkina Faso and the alliance of Sahel states, with demonstrations taking place in Burkina Faso itself, Ghana, and Liberia. These protests, organised by grassroots movements and Pan-Africanist groups, denounce foreign interference and condemn what they see as ongoing imperialist efforts to destabilise the region. The rallying cry, "Hands off the AES," has become a unifying slogan for these demonstrations. But what's driving this surge in Pan-African solidarity? In many ways, it represents a rejection of the status quo in West African governance. While ECOWAS champions democracy in its formal protocols, many citizens across the region feel that democracy as practiced has been hollow, marred by fraud, corruption, and the enrichment of elites at the expense of ordinary people. Against this backdrop, leaders like Traore are successfully positioning themselves not merely as usurpers, but as liberators from a failed system. They represent a new vision of African leadership, one that prioritises national sovereignty and challenges Western influence. This growing support for Traore in Nigeria is particularly significant, given the country's position as the regional powerhouse and ECOWAS chair. If Nigerian youth begin looking to military leaders in neighbouring countries as role models, it raises serious questions about the future of Nigeria's own democratic system. The rise of Traore and the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States presents an existential dilemma for ECOWAS. In fact, Tinubu would be threatened if the young Nigerians join the flow. Once heralded as the guardian of democracy and stability in the region, ECOWAS has watched helplessly as half its landmass has fallen outside of its political fold. The bloc's credibility has been further eroded by its failure to respond meaningfully to successive coups, starting with Mali in 2020 and culminating in Niger. ECOWAS's 2001 Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance commits the bloc to upholding constitutional order and intervening against unconstitutional changes of government. Yet, clinging rigidly to this framework risks deepening divisions at a time when the very definition of legitimacy is being reimagined by millions across the Sahel. Condemnations and sanctions have achieved little beyond hardening anti-Western and anti-ECOWAS sentiments in the Sahel. Indeed, the more ECOWAS threatens, the more the AES strengthens its internal resolve. Talk of military intervention following Niger's coup last year only pushed the Sahelian regimes closer together. Today, rather than promoting peace, security, and stability, ECOWAS confronts a coordinated alliance, one that is forging security and economic partnerships outside the traditional Western framework, notably with Russia and other non-traditional actors. The arrest of Kola Edokpayi suggests that Tinubu's administration has chosen a path of suppression rather than engagement, a strategy that may backfire by further alienating citizens who already feel disconnected from their government. But the move is a show for Nigerians to see that military coups aren't tolerated in Nigeria. But what are Nigerians saying in relation to this arrest? The arrest of Edokpayi has triggered significant anger among rights groups, civil society actors, and Pan-Africanists in Nigeria. Many have condemned it as an act of political repression and an assault on fundamental rights. The Edo State chapter of the Take It Back movement issued a statement demanding Edokpayi's immediate release, arguing that freedom of thought, expression and association are guaranteed under sections 38, 39 and 40 of the 1999 Constitution. His show of support for Captain Ibrahim Traore does not in any way justify his arrest. Kola has done nothing wrong for standing for Africa. He must be released. Other people believe that arresting Marxist Kola Edokpayi for a proposed solidarity walk in support of Ibrahim Traore was totally uncalled for. They believe that pan-Africanism should not be suppressed, but encouraged by all African countries and leaders. These reactions highlight a growing tension in Nigerian society. On one hand, there's the official government position that aligns with ECOWAS and traditional democratic values. On the other hand, there's increasing sympathy, especially among young Nigerians, for the revolutionary approach exemplified by Traore. This sympathy stems from frustration with Nigeria's own governance challenges. Despite being one of Africa's largest economies, Nigeria continues to struggle with widespread poverty, insecurity, and corruption. Many citizens question whether the country's democratic system is serving their interests or merely perpetuating elite privilege. The appeal of Traore's leadership style, decisive, nationalist, and anti-colonial, resonates with Nigerians who feel their own leaders have failed to stand up to Western influence or deliver meaningful development. Social media platforms in Nigeria regularly feature content celebrating Traore's achievements and contrasting them with perceived failures of Nigerian leadership. By arresting Edokpayi and suppressing pro-Traore demonstrations, the Nigerian government may inadvertently be strengthening the narrative that it fears the spread of revolutionary ideas that challenge the status quo. But tell me what you'll do if you were Tinubu. If this story has stirred something in you, even just a little, then don't scroll past without doing your part. Hit that like button to show you're not one of the silent ones. Subscribe to The New Tourist if you believe these truths deserve to be heard, not buried. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone who still thinks they understand Africa. Because if we stay quiet, we're no better than those who stood by and watched as colonial powers carved up our continent. We're no better than leaders who silenced their own citizens for supporting Pan-African unity. The courage to speak truth is what changes history. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Pan-Africanism should be encouraged or suppressed? Now let's get back to the story. The tension between Nigeria's government and supporters of Ibrahim Traore raises fundamental questions about the future of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism, the idea that African peoples, both on the continent and in the diaspora, share not just a common history, but a common destiny, has been a powerful force in African politics since the independence era. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and Thomas Sankara championed Pan-African unity as essential for the continent's development and true independence from colonial powers. The arrest of activists like Edokpayi for expressing solidarity with leaders in other African countries seems to contradict the spirit of Pan-Africanism that many African nations claim to uphold. Pan-Africanism shouldn't be killed. It's supposed to be encouraged by all African countries and leaders. The divide between ECOWAS's vision of democratic governance and the revolutionary approach of the Alliance of Sahel states represents competing visions for Africa's future. President Tinubu, as ECOWAS chairman, represents one vision: regional integration through democratic systems that align with global norms. Captain Traore represents another: national sovereignty, resistance to Western influence, and a willingness to reject democratic processes in favour of what he sees as more effective governance. The question isn't just which vision will prevail, but whether these competing approaches can find common ground. Can Pan-Africanism accommodate both democratic and revolutionary paths? Or will the continent become increasingly divided between these competing models? The arrest of Pan-African activists like Edokpayi suggests that for now, these divisions are deepening rather than healing. As we look to the future, several possibilities emerge for how this situation might unfold. For President Tinubu and Nigeria, continuing to suppress support for leaders like Traore risks further alienating citizens who already question the government's legitimacy. It could fuel a narrative that Nigeria's leadership is more concerned with maintaining Western approval than addressing the genuine grievances of its citizens. For ECOWAS, the challenge is existential. The regional bloc must either evolve its approach to accommodate the changing political landscape or risk becoming increasingly irrelevant. Engagement, not isolation, might be the key to bringing the alliance of Sahel states back into a regional framework. For Pan-Africanism, there's both opportunity and peril. The current moment could either reinvigorate Pan-African solidarity around new ideas of sovereignty and self-determination, or it could fragment the movement along ideological lines. And for ordinary citizens like Kola Edokpayi, the stakes are immediate and personal. Their right to express solidarity with African leaders of their choosing hangs in the balance, testing Nigeria's commitment to constitutional freedoms. What's clear is that West Africa is at a crossroads. The political architecture that has defined the region since the end of colonialism is being challenged, and new models are emerging. Whether these models can deliver the prosperity and security that citizens desire remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the silencing of voices like Edokpayi's won't stop the conversation about Africa's future. It will only push it into different forums, potentially making it harder for governments to engage constructively with citizens' aspirations. As Africa continues to write its own story, the tension between established systems and revolutionary challenges will likely persist. The question is whether African leaders can find ways to harness the energy of movements like Pan-Africanism towards shared goals of development, dignity, and true independence. When Kola Edokpayi was arrested for planning a pro-Traore rally, it wasn't just one activist being detained. It was a challenge to the very idea of Pan-African unity. The ideas that bind us together are stronger than the borders that separate us. The silencing of Pan-African voices won't stop the movement. It will only strengthen the resolve. Because across Africa, people are waking up to a simple truth. The systems installed after colonialism haven't delivered the freedom and prosperity they promised. From Lagos to Ouagadougou, from Accra to Johannesburg, Africans are questioning who truly benefits from the current order. If watching this story stirred something in you, if you felt anger, inspiration, or hope, don't let that feeling fade away. This moment of awakening across West Africa is too important to ignore. Subscribe to the New Tourist channel right now. We're committed to telling these stories that mainstream media ignores. Stories about Africa's struggle for true independence, about leaders who challenge the status quo, about ordinary citizens who risk everything for Pan-African solidarity. Like this video so algorithms can't bury a story the world needs to hear. When supporters of African unity are silenced, our voices need to be even louder. Share this with your friends, your family, your study groups, and your colleagues. Start conversations about what true African sovereignty looks like in the 21st century. Debate whether ECOWAS should evolve or be replaced. Question whether democracy without economic independence is freedom at all. And if you want to go deeper, if you want exclusive analysis, early access, and community discussions about Africa's political transformation, join our membership community. Because the New Tourist isn't just a channel anymore, it's a movement of people who believe African stories should be told by Africans, for Africans. And this struggle for Pan-African solidarity and true independence